Hello Admirals and welcome back to my channel where I talk to you about Battlefleet Gothic, the spaceship game based in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. So in this video I'm going to talk about Adepticon. What is Adepticon? It is one of the biggest events on the wargaming tabletop calendar. It's a huge event, thousands and thousands of people attend over an event in America. There has been traditionally 5 different venues, but this time it's in Wisconsin. Massive event, definitely something a pin on the calendar. What is Adepticon and why are we talking about it for Battlefleet Gothic? So Adepticon has become one of, if not the largest kind of event in the wargaming calendar. It's historically started in 2003 with like 100 odd people turning up, and now has ballooned into this behemoth of an event with tens of thousands of people turning up now in 2025. So the event itself is a mix of loads of different companies. It's not just one company, and it's not the big company like Games Workshop. It's a lot of other companies as well. There's loads of painting competitions. There's loads of different tournaments for all these different companies and game systems. D&D is there. There's loads of shops and different events. And then the big companies like Games Workshop do events there, so they will often showcase new miniatures and things like that there as well. But it's not just about those big game systems like Warhammer 40,000 or even Star Wars Legions or something like that. There's also one critical tournament run for our little community too. So that's a brief history of Adepticon, Admirals. You can check out their website for a lot more information on their About bit, and it explains a lot more about the tournament and what's happening and things like that. So have a look at their website if you're interested. But why is it important for us in the Battlefleet Gothic community? Well, it's because a Battlefleet Gothic tournament is run there, and it's historically been certainly the longest running that's been going on and the most well-known Battlefleet Gothic tournament. There are worldwide. There have been many tournaments that have occurred, but this one has consistently been on the calendar for a very long time now, and that's thanks to people like Alex and Andrew running it and making sure that people are attending those sorts of events. But what is the tournament? What's involved? It's typically played over one day now, and of the multi-day event at Adepticon. So one of those days is a BFG day, and usually it's turned into 3 scenarios to play of the day. So before I get into the new scenarios for this upcoming tournament in a couple of weeks that the team were very kindly sent to me to have a look at, and they've put out to the community now as well, so you can see that on the various different Discords and things like that too. It's out there now. But I wanted to show some of the last couple of years pictures from the tournament. So here's some fleets, and here's some battle shots, for want of a better term. And what I really love is the variety of different fleets. So we've got Chaos, we've got Admech, Tau, Tyranids, Imperial, Space Marines, Dark Eldar. So all the different factions are typically represented in this tournament, which is wonderful to see. It shows that there's not one particular fleet that is seen as the most meta and the one to use. Interestingly, Necrons don't seem to appear as much as many people like to call them overpowered, but they don't seem to appear in this tournament, which is interesting. And what I love most, actually, though, is that the winners are placed onto Purity Sealed and then stuck onto a banner, which has been running for a very long time, which is really, really cool to see. And you can see in the photo, Dark Eldar and Space Marines have won previously and things like that. So I think it's a really cool touch, keeps the history going and really adds to the flavour and narrative of the tournament. Lovely. And shameless plug here, my logo got onto the tournament's banner for Battlefleet Gothic, which is pretty exciting. The guys asked me to help with that, so and put that up. So shameless plug. So the scenarios for this year. So there have been, I've helped occasionally in previous years where the scenarios for the tournament have been given to playtest to see if they make sense, to see if there are any weird loopholes that could be done, and we've provided feedback. Myself and a couple of mates, Gary, who's BFG noob, and my mate Dan, have played scenarios before to try and work out any of those sort of weird sort of interactions that may occur. So it's been fun. So Alex was kind enough to send me the scenarios beforehand. I haven't had a chance to play test them this time. However, I had a chance to have a look at them, and I'm going to share them with you here. But and some of my thoughts on it, and some of the fleets that could do well. I think, in all honesty, with these three scenarios, if you have a fast fleet, that is going to lend itself very, very well to the scenarios, just on the way that they've kind of set up. But I would argue that in any wargaming, doesn't matter the game you're playing, speed and maneuverability and how you maneuver your forces is actually critical in any game. So yes, you can be fast, but if you fail to move correctly, that can open the door to slower armies quite comfortably. And Battlefleet Gothic is very much like that. Everyone immediately thinks Eldar, really, really fast. But if you stuff up your movement with them at any time, they can be caught and smashed to pieces pretty quickly. So an example of that. So this one, it seems like fast fleets are going to err to it, and it does. But if they incorrectly move or move too soon or something like that, they could be hit pretty hard, I think. And I think there could be you think there's an ebb and flow in the game. I think the fast fleets will think they're winning, and then suddenly they might get hit pretty hard, and end game they may see themselves losing a bit. But let's have a look at the scenarios. There are three, like I said, that we played across the tournament day as per tradition. So let's have a look at those two scenarios and have a chat about them. So these are the three scenarios. I'll go through them. But first thing I wanted to mention, though, is that this tournament is run at 1,350 points. So not 1,200 sometimes, or 1,500 has been those. But in this particular tournament for 2025, the fleet list will be 1,350 points, and you need to use cruiser and a battleship in your fleet list as well. They need to have at least one of those. So no full escort fleets allowed. But looking at the first scenario, this one's kind of a straight up fight, essentially, with a little bit of a twist with you needing to get secondary objectives to slay Admiral and stuff like that, and ram a ship as well, which I really appreciate. I think that's hilarious. Not particularly good if you maybe Eldar or Dark Eldar or something like that. They don't typically want to ram. Tau probably don't either. But if you're an Imperial or Orc, then, or maybe even Space Marine, you're laughing, right? So that's something that I think does play into it. You may want to consider whether you want to go for those secondaries or not. Slaying the enemy admirals a straightforward one. We always want to take out the enemy admiral because that potentially removes their reroll opportunities. But in this particular scenario, depending on what fleet you are, how fast you are, and if you win the deployment, then that could influence where you deploy and how you use the moons or planet, depending on where you go. So if you win the roll-off and you get to deploy your ship first, if you're slower, then you potentially want to consider placing your first miniature and your first round where you could potentially use those planets or even the asteroid as cover, or an ability to be able to slingshot around those planets with the extra turn. So if you're slower, that might be a bonus. You don't want to be boxed in, but keeping your fleet together, there could potentially be a really good little scenario there for you and your tactic to use if you are a slower fleet. If you're faster, this one's going to be a bit trickier, but you're going to want to try and outmaneuver your opponents as well. Basically anything, but it's going to be a tricky one with those planets to be able to fully utilize a lot of the movement that some fleets have, but certainly possible, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and you need to have a think on that if you're, say, Eldar or Dark Eldar or even Necrons coming in. How you're going to position and to ensure that you get maximum firing lanes is going to be kind of important in this particular scenario. So the second scenario of the day adds a little bit of a twist to the beat 'em up. So you still get the victory points for killing things and destroying your enemy ships, but you get the secondaries here, not from the Admiral, killing the Admiral or ramming, but in this one, you're going to get it from scanning the space stations. So you'll only be able to do that once. So this one while the previous one could be better for a slower fleet to be able to use maneuverability, this one in this scenario I think lends itself to the need for speed. And if you are faster and can get to the space stations quicker and to scan them, and when I say scan them, you need to essentially base-to-base contact with the ship and the space station. If you're faster and can maneuver pretty easily, then this scenario could be really up your alley, basically. So this one could be really, really, while the previous one could lend itself nicely to a fleet sticking together, meticulously sort of working together to with their mutual firing arcs and things like that. This one definitely lends itself to a fleet that can break up and outmaneuver its opponent to get those extra secondaries and things like that. So be interesting to see which fleets are played and which fleets win this scenario. I'll be keen to see how this plays out, to be perfectly honest. But a fun one. I've seen these sorts of scenarios before, where you have to get in base with a space station or a planet or something like that, which is always a fun little narrative event as part of this. As always, Scenario 3 is kind of the weird, quirky one. In previous years, it was like a warp rift, which sucked your ships in 10d6. In this one, there's a roiling warp rift on one side of the board, a gas giant on the other. And the warp rift can damage your ships or fully destroy them if you come into contact with them. So I think from my experience with these sorts of scenarios before, where one kind of awful thing is on one side of the board and it's semi-safe on the other, I think what you'll see is a significant amount of play on the gas giant side of the board, with not as much play towards the warp rift. I think a lot of admirals will try and stick away from that, not purely because if they get within a certain range they get damaged onto their ship, but also that minus leadership. So as part of this, you do lose leadership if you're close to that warp rift. So I can see a significant portion of the battle taking place on one side of the board, to be perfectly honest. So that could, again, then you flip it with one being more slow, compact fleets, two being fast fleets. This one could then lend itself to those compact fleets that want to stick together here as well. There is that additional, in this one, there's a little bit of an error. It doesn't tell you about the scanning of, again, but you can do the scanning of the station again in this one to get secondaries. It's not on this page, but it should be. I've confirmed that with Andrew about that, so that'll probably be updated as part of the pack or whatever for the tournament. But yeah, I can see potentially then the risky maneuver is if you're a fast fleet, maybe throwing a couple of ships out towards that warp rift, because other fleets don't want to go near it, and you might be able to outmaneuver them then. So potentially if you're someone like a Necron or an Eldar, or maybe even if you're a Space Marine and you just want to throw yourself out there, some strike cruisers that you can put on the flank and maybe throw all ahead full, rush them up, and then turn them in to potentially get in and behind. Yeah, maybe an opportunity there. But with this scenario, I can certainly see a lot of admirals focusing more towards the one side of the board with the gas giant and asteroids rather than the boiling rift. So that may not even come into play in certain games. I could see that. So there you go, Admirals. 3 scenarios that are going to be at the Battlefleet Gothic tournament at Adepticon. What do you think? What do you think? What scenario would you prefer? What would you like to play? Out of those 3, how do you think you would play them? What fleet would you take? Let me know in the comments. I think personally, I would love to give 3 different fleets here a go in these tournaments. I'd love to see how Chaos did, because they have that mix of speed and firepower. I think they will do well, personally, in this, in these 3 scenarios. I actually think Dark Eldar would be fun to play in this tournament style. I think they'd be quite underrated. I think they could be underestimated. I think I would love to see how they tracked, especially with sort of that Warcraft 1 and running in and scanning things and things like that. I think that would be kind of enjoyable. And the other one I want to give a go with actually is totally opposite in many ways. I'd like to go like the Tau merchant fleet, and slow and steady wins the race kind of thing, and just pumping out ordnance and then slowly making your way towards, the objectives. So yeah, like maybe 3 explorers, 3 heroes sort of thing. I'd love to give that a go. So 3 completely different fleets there that I'd love to try in these sort of different scenarios. If I had to pick one, I'd probably, just to be safe, not competitive, because I'm not competitive, just to be safe, I'd probably do Chaos, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, I'm leaning towards Dark Elder, I have to admit, personally, I think. That'd be the one I would like to play and give a go. But yeah, let me know in the comments, Admirals, what you think. What fleet would you take? And yeah, I'll be back with another video soon. Cheers.